appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us your servants, whom you have called to the performance of important trust in these islands. Father, let your blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. And this we beg in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Please be seated. Item number 2, the confirmation of minutes. Vice President John White, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam President. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 3rd, 2026 be taken as read.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of Wednesday, 3rd June 2026 be confirmed.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Second set of minutes to confirm the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 17th June 2026, which should be taken as read.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of Wednesday, 17th June 2026 be confirmed.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The minutes are confirmed. Thank you, Vice President John White. Item number 3, messages, Mrs. Beal.
There are no messages, Madam President.
Thank you. Item number 4, reports of committees. There are none. Item number 5, announcements. We have a few announcements this morning. The first is in the name of Senator the Honorable Krista C. Caesar, spokesperson for finance. Minister Caesar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning to all. Good morning to the listening public. Madam President, I hereby present for the information of the Senate the Bermuda Monetary Authority 2025 Annual Report. This report is submitted in accordance with Section 28(2) of the Bermuda Monetary Authority Act 1969. Senators may access copies on their tablets and or the Parliament website.
Thank you, Minister. And on that note, I would just like to welcome Mr. Craig Swan, the CEO of the Bermuda Monetary Authority, who is in the chamber this morning. Welcome to you, sir. The next announcement is in the name of Senator Misha G. Fubler, the Junior Minister for the Cabinet Office and Digital Innovation.
Thank you, Madam President. I hereby present for the information of Senate the Privacy Commissioner Safeguarding Bermuda Annual Report 2025-26 as required by Section 37 of the Personal Information Protection Act 2016. Senators may access copies on their tablets and or the Parliament website.
Thank you, Senator Fubler. The next announcement is in the name of Senator Lindsay K. Simmons, the Junior Minister for Youth, Social Development, and Seniors.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I hereby present for the information of Senate the Child Day Care Allowance Amendment Regulations 2026 as made by the Minister responsible for financial assistance and exercise of the powers conferred by Section 17 of the Child Day Care Allowance Act 2008. Senators may access copies of the regulations on their tablets and or the Parliament website. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. And the last announcement is in the name of the Junior Minister of Economy and Labor, Senator Lauren F. Bell. Senator Bell, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam President, colleagues, and listening audience. I hereby present for the information of Senate strengthening the enforcement powers of Bermuda's Employment and Labor Relations Tribunal report. Senators may access copies on their tablets and or the Parliament website.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Item number 6, notices of motion. There are none. Item number 7, petitions. There are none. Item number 8, statements. The first statement is in the name of Senator the Honorable Kim R. Wilkerson, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, today I rise to inform this Honorable Senate of the June 25th, 2026 opening of Astor House a powerful symbol of reintegration, renewal, and hope for individuals returning to our community after incarceration. Madam President, Astor House is a newly renovated 9-bed residence that will provide transitional housing and support for individuals leaving prison as they reintegrate into the community. Madam President, it has been observed when we provide individuals with 3 essential supports: a safe place to live, guidance to rebuild their lives, and opportunities to contribute positively to society, we strengthen not only the individual, but also families, neighborhoods, and the wider Bermuda community. This sentiment reflects the collaborative spirit that has brought Astor House to fruition and highlights the belief that rehabilitation and public safety are complementary goals. Madam President, while the opening of Astor House on June 25th, 2026 marks a significant milestone, it is only the beginning. Madam President, Astor House stands as more than a building of 9 beds and 5 rooms. It represents a commitment to safer communities, stronger families, and the belief that every person who is willing to accept responsibility and embrace positive change deserves the opportunity to succeed. Madam President, Astor House represents a targeted and strategic investment in public safety and successful reintegration. The government, through the Ministry of Youth, Social Development, initially provided $317,275 to support the renovation of the site. This initiative is a government cross-ministry collaboration with the Ministry of Youth, Social Development, and Seniors, committing and contributing $150,000, the Ministry of Justice committing $100,000, and the Ministry of National Security committing $150,000, for a total of $400,000 in this go-forward fiscal year for the operations of Astor House. This funding is to ensure that a successful global standard of service delivery is enshrined in the Astor House programming. You see, Madam President, Astor House is intended to provide not just accommodation, but structured support services and defined supervision that is necessary for individuals to rebuild and thrive as members of society. Madam President, this investment is grounded in evidence. International research demonstrates that individuals leaving correctional institutions without stable housing, supervision, employment opportunities, or support services are substantially more likely to reoffend. In some jurisdictions, up to 2/3 of formerly incarcerated individuals may be rearrested within 3 years when these supports are absent. Conversely, transitional housing programs that combine accommodation, supervision, employment support, and rehabilitation services have been shown to improve reintegration outcomes and reduce recidivism. Madam President, more importantly, Astor House builds upon this premise by addressing one of the most significant barriers to successful reintegration: access to stable and supportive housing. Residents of Astor House will be on license and supervised by a dedicated court services parole officer, while also receiving coordinated support from a home case manager and the house parent. That combination of housing, supervision, case management, and daily support is what makes this program distinct. Madam President, every successful reintegration not only improves the life chances of the individual concerned, but also strengthens families, reduces demands on public services, enhances community well-being, and contributes to safer neighborhoods across Bermuda. Astor House is therefore both a social investment and a public safety investment. Madam President, this program has been brought forward through the leadership of the Ministry of Youth, Social Development and Seniors, the Attorney General's Office, working with the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Justice, and most importantly, Home. It is also a direct product of the partnership between the Ministry of Justice and the charity Home, and I want that partnership to be clearly acknowledged today. I also want to acknowledge the hard work of Minister the Honorable Tanae Furbett, JPMP, and her senior team, and Miss Denise Carey, the CEO of Home, and I should add Home's leadership through Arthur Whiteman as the chair of that organization. The government and its partners view Astor House as a foundation upon which a broader continuum of integration services can be built. The program will be closely monitored to assess outcomes, identify opportunities for improvement, and ensure that services remain responsive to the needs of residents and the wider community. Madam President, the governance framework established through the partnership of government agencies and community organizations will support this ongoing evaluation and accountability process. Looking ahead, our focus will be on strengthening sustainable employment pathways and workforce participation opportunities for residents, enhancing access to health, behavioral health, and social support services through coordinated case management, and monitoring and evaluating program outcomes related to housing stability, successful reintegration, and reduced reoffending. We are not simply celebrating the opening of a facility, but the opening of new possibilities. We are investing in a program that seeks to break cycles of instability, reduce the likelihood of reoffending, and improve outcomes for individuals, families, and communities across Bermuda. Therefore, Madam President, let Astor House stand as a symbol of hope, responsibility, accountability, renewal, second chances. I therefore call upon all stakeholders, government agencies, community partners, faith-based organizations, employers, and residents to join us in supporting this effort. Continued support and financial contributions from public and private sector partners will be instrumental in building upon the progress already achieved and ensure that long-term success of this initiative. Madam President, successful reintegration is not the responsibility of one agency or organization or one ministry. It is a shared responsibility that requires partnership, compassion, accountability, and community engagement. As a country, Madam President, we all have a role to play in supporting successful reintegration. Government can provide leadership and resources. Community organizations can provide guidance and support. Employers can open doors to meaningful employment. Families can encourage positive change. And our communities can help create pathways toward productive citizenship. Madam President, let it stand as a testament to what can be achieved when we invest in the people of Bermuda. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Minister Wilkerson, for your statement. The second statement is in the name of Senator the Honorable Crystal Caesar, the spokesperson for Finance. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, in accordance with Section 28 of the Bermuda Monetary Authority 1969, the Premier Minister of Finance tabled the 2025 annual report of the Bermuda Monetary Authority in the House of Assembly on Friday, the 26th of June, 2026. Madam President, Bermuda's financial sector is subject to the regulation and supervision of the Bermuda Monetary Authority. The authority operates pursuant to the Bermuda Monetary Authority Act 1969, or the Act, which provides it with a number of principal objects, including the supervision, regulation, and inspection of financial institutions operating in or from within Bermuda, together with the promotion of financial stability and soundness of financial institutions. Madam President, the Senate would be aware that the authority has specific licensing and supervisory responsibilities under the following regulatory statutes: the Banks and Deposits Companies Act, Corporate Service Providers Business Act, the Digital Business Asset Act, the Insurance Act, the Investment Business Act, the Investment Funds Act, Money Service Business Act, the Fund Administration Provider Business Act, the Trusts Regulation of Trust Business Act, together with other statutes. The authority also regulates the Bermuda Stock Exchange. The authority's mission is to contribute to Bermuda's financial stability, protect customers of financial services, and protect Bermuda's currency through maintaining effective and proactive regulatory frameworks through its highly skilled and engaged workforce, delivering efficient operations and sustainable business practices, and supporting responsible innovation locally and in global markets. Madam President, the authority has received international recognition for its regulatory excellence, Bermuda being one of only 7 jurisdictions with U.S. National Association of Insurance Commissioners, a qualified jurisdiction status. One of 3 with that particular status or reciprocal jurisdiction status, and one of just 2 jurisdictions in the world to be granted full Solvency II equivalence by the European Union. Madam President, the authority is an active and respected participant in key international regulatory bodies, fostering strong global relationships. The authority's managing director for supervision serves on the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, or IAIS, executive committee, with the BMA staff leading or contributing to numerous IAIS committees, including those on monitoring and risk assessment, the Signatories Working Group, and the Financial Crime Forum. The authority also engages with the Financial Stability Board, the Bank for International Settlements, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's Working Party on Insurance and Pensions, and the Global Financial Innovation Network. Madam President, the authority is authorized to advise the Minister of Finance on policy matters relating to financial institutions and may propose legislation consistent with its responsibilities under the Bermuda Monetary Authority Act 1969. Amongst the legislative proposals advanced in 2025 were measures to enhance the oversight and regulation of insurance groups, including expanded criteria for group supervision and a regime for designated insurance holding companies. Measures to bolster the authority's power to make rules in relation to statutory financial statements, and measures to enable information sharing with the Bermuda Deposit Insurance Corporation to support the efficient and effective management of any banking crisis that might arise. Additionally, rules were made establishing requirements in respect of custody of client assets for digital asset businesses. Enhancements were made to existing rules for insurers in relation to solvency requirements, and regulations governing the charging of banks of over-the-limit and unauthorized overdraft fees were passed. Madam President, the Senate's attention is drawn to the following key highlights for the various sectors supervised by the authority. Banking sector. With regard to the banking sector, consolidated assets increased to $26.1 billion in 2025 from $23.7 billion in 2024. Investments retained the largest share of total assets at 51%, followed by loans at 31.8%, and cash deposits of 14.6%. Net interest income continued to be the largest component of the banking sector's income at $756.8 million, up from $754.5 million in 2024. Insurance sector. Madam President, moving to the insurance sector, 1,210 insurers were registered as of the 31st of December 2025 compared to 1,239 in 2024, with 56 insurers added to the register in 2025. According to the 2024 year-end information, total capital and surplus was $447 billion in 2024, an increase from the $404 billion recorded in 2023. Gross premiums written were $362 billion in 2024, an increase of $46 billion from the $316 billion recorded in 2023. This increase is attributed to the growth in business written by large, commercial, general business, and long-term insurers. Total assets were $2.17 trillion in 2024, an increase of $296 billion from the $1.87 trillion recorded in 2023. This increase was largely due to increased business written by a specific group of insurers. Madam President, moving to the investment sector, there were 54 licensed investment business providers, an increase of 2 from 52 in 2024, and 60 registered investment business providers operating in Bermuda during 2025. The aggregate total assets under management reported by licensed investment providers were $300.2 billion compared to the $230.5 billion in 2024. Total assets under administration for 2025 were $30.7 billion compared to $25.4 billion reported for 2024. Madam President, in 2025, there were 766 investment funds on the Investment Funds Act register, a decrease of 18 compared to 784 in 2024. Of these funds, 130 were overseas funds being promoted in Bermuda, and 636 were Bermuda funds. This is contrasted against 2024, whereby 129 overseas funds were promoted in Bermuda, and Bermuda funds totaled 655, with a net asset value reported in relation to Bermuda funds of $315.38 billion, an increase from $294.8 billion in 2024. At the end of 2025, 21 fund administrator licenses were in issue, with $199.5 billion in assets under administration. Moving to the digital asset business sector. Madam President, 2025 was another year of growth for the digital asset business sector, which ended the year with 49 digital asset business providers in Bermuda, an increase from the 36 recorded in 2024. This sector is continuing to demonstrate growth, strong growth, which is a testament to this government's foresight in ensuring that Bermuda established a credible regime for this emerging sector, which has been in place since 2018. Madam President, the total equity market capitalization of the Bermuda Stock Exchange stood at $297 billion at the end of 2025, as compared with $217.6 billion at the end of 2024. A total of 209 new insurance-linked securities were added to the BSX in 2025, an increase from 156 new issues recorded in 2024. Domestic trading volume totaled over 834,000 shares in 2025, down from 11.3 million in 2024. And the value of the shares traded decreased to 11.6 million compared to 105.8 million in 2024, primarily due to merger activity. I will now speak of the BMA 2025 financial highlights. Madam President, the Senate's attention is drawn to the following highlights set out in the Statement of Accounts report. Net income for the authority was $18.55 million, up from net income of $17.9 million in the previous year. Total revenue increased by 16.1% to $150.7 million, up from $129.8 million. This increase is mainly due to a 24.47 million increase in revenue from supervisory and licensing fees. Expenses increased by 18.13% to 132.2 million, and the increase was mainly due to the 15.1 million increase in increased salaries and benefits. Licensing fees were 139 million compared to the 114.5 million from the prior year, of which 126.3 million was paid by the insurance sector. The receipt of funds from fines and penalties decreased by 4 million from the previous year, and I hope that means that people are behaving. The authority had 343 full-time permanent employees, an increase from 302 in 2024. Board members are paid an annual fee of $50,000, which is unchanged from 2024. Board subcommittee chairs are paid an annual fee of $58,000 to $63,000, unchanged from 2024. The chairman of the board receives an annual fee of $125,000, and that is unchanged from 2024. The CEO's salary is set at $564,000, up from $550,000 in 2020, and he is eligible for a performance-based bonus of up to 50% of base salary. The salaries of the other 20 members of the executive team range from $286,000 to $513,000, with a performance-based bonus of up to 42% of salary. Madam President, upon reviewing the authority's 2025 financial statements, the Auditor General has issued a clean opinion. On behalf of the government, I wish to express sincere appreciation to the authority's board. I also wish to extend special thanks to the executive team and dedicated staff of the Bermuda Monetary Authority. The board and executive team deserve the Senate's congratulations for their sound stewardship and the excellent financial results received in 2025. The government is especially grateful for the continued partnership and collaboration with the authority's leadership as we remain focused on expanding and strengthening Bermuda's financial sector in a globally competitive environment. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Minister Caesar, spokesperson for Finance in the Senate. Moving on then with our orders of business. Item number 9, introduction of bills. There are none. Item number 10, the first reading of public bills. The following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are now read for the first time. Their titles are Pensions Increase Amendment Act 2026 and the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Amendment Act 2026. And Senators, these bills will be taken up on our orders of the day today, later in the meeting. The first, item number 11, the first reading of private bills. There are none. Item number 12, question period. Senators, we will now entertain questions, first of all, with the first ministerial statement that was presented by the Honorable Minister Kim Wilkerson, AG. Would any senator care to ask questions on this? Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning. And thank you to Madam AG for that statement. I think it's definitely welcome. And anyway, just a few questions. So I can't remember when it was, but there was a Home did a survey that 113 people due to be released shortly are likely to have no housing in place. And so you mentioned that Astor House has 9 beds. What will be the referral criteria to determine which people, and I'm guessing it's males, which males will be admitted first?
Thank you. First, I can't corroborate the statistic that there are only 177 inmates currently. If 120 were due to come out, we'd really have no one left, really. So I'm not sure that's correct, but I do understand the basis of the question, and I guess it is there may be more demand than we have beds for in this facility. I think that's where it's going. So although there are 9 beds, one of the beds will be for the house manager. So really, we're going to be taking 8 candidates into this kind of first cohort. There will be, at the case management level, assessment as to who will be suitable, and then those considerations then go to the governance committee. It is all male. Yes.
Senator Cunningham, you have a
And then a supplementary
supplementary?
to
Okay.
that. Is there a timeline for any additional facilities in place, to supplement the 8 for expansion?
There is not at the moment, and that is one of the reasons that the measurement of the outcomes on this project and its programming will be so important. They will inform how we go about the next, but there certainly has been expressed, and we know a need for potentially women who are leaving incarceration who may need a home, and also for people who are leaving incarceration who don't have the, for whatever reason, ability to work. This model is a working facility. So the underpinning is that every resident will be employed.
Senator Cunningham, you have a
Second question.
second question.
And I wasn't sure if my honourable colleague behind me would be listening in, but so, because she likes her measurable targets. You just mentioned, what specific measurable targets will be tracked? I guess they're on a 6-month-year basis.
Yeah. Including, so there will be case managers. So they will have, there is a database system called Inform, and the case managers are able to, they'll be inputting data into that. So we'll be tracking data at all times. So it'll include the things such as how they've performed at work, that they continue to be employed, that they comply with the house rules, which will include a curfew, a time to be in the house at night. It's meant to be a collaborative environment where I think good behavior encourages other good behavior, so that's why it's a working house. And they're compliant with any programming that is part of their license conditions.
Supplemental to that. So I think it was mentioned 3. So the house parent, the home case manager, and a parole officer would be involved. What happens after hours? Or is it 24 hours? Someone will be there. The house parent, I guess, would live there. So
The house
it's
parent lives
24.
there. Yes.
And then supplementary to that, what is the average, I don't know if you'd even know this, what's the average anticipated time that the residents will be there?
We don't know. We don't know. And that is certainly one of the questions that I think Denise Carey, who really has thoroughly researched homelessness and what it needs, what people will need to get back on track. The idea is that through this program, one of the programs that going in, an inmate would have to undertake is something called rent ready. So their readiness to rent, and the ambition obviously is that they're able to leave the house with a record of being a good tenant and then go on to into the pool of available housing.
This isn't a question, but it's just an observation. Some of these residents could well have been incarcerated from the age of 17 or 18, right? So they may never have lived by themselves. Just suddenly thought that as you were talking. Anyway, third question. You talk about the renovation costs and the ongoing cross-ministry funding. So is that intended to be a recurring annual cost of the $400,000 for the operating?
Subject to the performance outcomes, yes.
And then supplementary to that, what percentage of that is going to come from home fundraising, or the total operating, what percentage is going to come from the fundraising from home?
At this point, we are projecting the operating costs for this fiscal year are all borne by the government. The go-forward model, as I said in the paper, would be that we would hope that there could be contributions from the private sector as well. And that's how the opportunity to grow the model will take place.
And then final supplementary to that is what contingency would exist if that fundraising fell short?
What at the moment,
Okay.
that's why it's government
Right, okay.
funding at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Because the government recognizes that this is such an important commitment, it cannot be left to the general population. But we do know that donors, and particularly corporate donors, are very interested in measurable outcomes, and that program should be evidence-based. And so building that support, I believe, will help to support funding going forward.
Thank you, Madam McGee. Vice President John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. For starters, I'd like to congratulate government on this initiative. I think it can't be easy for people incarcerated to reenter society, and I think this housing supervisory and management framework will serve to protect the community, but also give the best possibilities for people to have a foundation to succeed in life. So I congratulate government on this initiative. My question really is one of understanding, and perhaps others in the community might as well. Currently, what happens to people when they do exit the prison system and they don't have a place to live? What are those individuals currently doing?
This programming is focused on people who are going to be on parole, so they're on license. Housing is a condition of license. And so we have recognized that there has been a challenge where people have not been able to take advantage of parole because they don't have suitable housing to go to.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, sir. Would any other senator care to ask questions? Senator Tawana Tanek, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, and congratulations to the government for this initiative, and also for entrusting the research to and I guess development to Ms. Denise Carey, who as a former probation officer and as director of whom I know has a lot of experience in this area. My first question is regarding the halfway house that was established in 2013. The Transitional Rehabilitation and Reentry Program, that center that was run by Mrs. Swan. I can't remember her first name. What happened to that halfway house? Is it still operational, and how many inmates does it hold? Or this is supplementary to that halfway house, or is this in conjunction with that halfway house? That's my first question.
Madam McGee.
Thank you, Senator Tanek. My statement didn't cover the halfway house.
So is the Transitional Living Center still in effect, and is it optional? Can inmates go to Astor House or the TLC?
As far as I'm aware, there is no transitional living center or halfway house that was established in 2013, still in place.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Senator Tanek, the question is based on the statement that was given.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is with regard to I heard Senator White mention this, and I just wanted to clarify. So if because the statement does say that the individual will be on license, so that means that if an individual serves their full time, they will not be eligible for this program.
That is correct.
Okay, so we are still releasing prisoners who have served their full sentence into society without a place to stay and without support.
That is correct. And I think that identifies that there is, to Senator Cunningham's question, a broader need to be met with these models. Absolutely. We acknowledge that.
All right. And then my next comment is with regard to, and I appreciate that there's not a large amount of spaces and buildings that can house 9 people, but was any thought given to the fact that that the building is in an increased penalty zone?
Absolutely, and that is why there is very specific vetting on the complement and the criteria for residents in this particular facility.
Thank you. I have a supplemental to that. Are we able to hear a little bit more about the vetting process? So, for instance, if there are people that have had DVPOs against some domestic violence protection orders, will they be allowed in the house? What's the criteria? Is it nonviolent offenses? Thank you.
Madam AG.
Thank you. I cannot say what categories will be excluded at this point, but eligibility for the first phase is certainly going to be very, very deliberate. So, for example, it'll be a sober house. So if a person is on license, but their rehabilitation needs require them to be in a drug treatment program, for example, and they are still using, for example, they would not be eligible for the program because of the, as you say, the location of the house. A person who is on license for certain kinds of offenses, maybe on the sex offender registry, would not be eligible for residency in the house. The candidates must be able to demonstrate that they're employment ready as well, and certainly safety, credibility, the ability to live collaboratively will be measurements that will be taken.
Thank you. And I have one supplemental with regard to, I guess, not eligibility, but the increased penalty zone and the persons who will be in it. And this is maybe supplemental to also Senator Cunningham, in which she asked if the house person would be there all the time. What is the security system? Do we have cameras installed? Will there be a security guard? What does security look like in the area for that particular establishment?
There will not be a security guard, and the idea is that the candidates should be capable of responsible living. They're being reintegrated. They're not moving from a prison to another prison. So that is not the model, but they will certainly be case managed and have the supports that they need. The house will have, I think I mentioned earlier, there were set up curfews, a secure code for the entry and exit, and after a certain time, people will not be able to enter the facility.
Thank you. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Senator David Rogers, you have the floor.
Good morning, Bermuda, and good morning to my colleagues. I'd like just to follow on. So certainly this is the direction of travel, more community-based services, especially aging in place, disability services, mental health, and corrections, moving from an institutional framework to a more community-centric framework. I applaud the housing first approach. I definitely think that answers a lot of the difficulties of reintegration into societies. I do acknowledge the concern, especially community residents, concerned about potential safety risks. The minister has done a job of speaking to some of the safety risks, and certainly she's spoken to eligibility. I do have a question regarding hard stops on length of stay, especially with the current housing situation and potential crisis. Will there be a hard stop on how long individuals are allowed to stay in the facility? And my next question will follow on after your answer.
No hard stop.
Okay.
For the very reasons that you've pointed out, and
fair.
in recognition of the current climate. Certainly, if the climate in relation to housing and affordable housing should change, that could change. But at the moment, I think Ms. Carey is very clear that it is a housing first initiative, as you quite rightly say, and so it may take as long as it takes.
Is there a rent?
That's
Is there a rent?
supplemental?
Yes, my apologies. Supplemental. Is there a rent associated? Are the how to say tenants, I guess, required to pay any rents or fees associated with their stay?
Yes, there is a daily rental fee of $18 per day, and the residents must be employed and able to pay the $18 per day.
And
Mr. Rogers,
final question.
second question.
The minister mentioned coordination with other organizations. I would like to hear more about the coordination between MWI, because we certainly recognize that mental health services certainly play a role in reintegration. So.
Thank you. I cannot speak specifically to coordination with MWI, and you would appreciate that each resident would have their own case management plan. So if the particular case management plan calls for that kind of intervention, that will be there, but it's not across the board.
And the only other thing I would say is MWI offers a wide variety of services. Anyone who would have had contact with the justice system, I would encourage them to also, seek appropriate services at MWI.
Thank you, Senator
Yeah.
Rogers. Would any other senator, before we leave the statement, would any other senator care to ask questions?
Madam President, I would just...
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, just
Minister.
continuing to answer.
Madam AG, yes.
So for information, the governance board will include Dr. M.C. Chekwa, who is a forensic psychologist at corrections at the moment as part of the governance committee. So there's that ongoing oversight at the governance level on these issues.
Thank you, Madam AG, and thank you, senators, for your questions on this statement. We'll move now on to the second statement that was presented by Minister Crystal Caesar, and that is the Bermuda Monetary Authority Annual Report. Would any senator care to ask questions? Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And since we have the CEO, congratulations for a good year for the Bermuda Monetary Authority. I think the statement states how important it is to Bermuda's global reputation. So great job. I have a question, or maybe two, on the digital asset business growth that we're seeing from 36 to 49. And I just wondered what measures are in place to ensure systemic resilience keeps pace with that growth. And as a supplementary to that, is the headcount and resourcing keeping pace, or is additional capacity or expertise planned in the future? That's specifically about digital assets.
Thank you, Madam President. With regard to the question around digital assets, there are a number of digital tools that are actually employed in order to monitor activity, et cetera. And as the BMA has done with several other of the areas for which they provide supervision, headcount will obviously keep pace once activities ramp up, obviously, and they will ensure that they are properly staffed to monitor as appropriate.
Senator Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam President.
Second question.
Is around the, so revenues we're seeing increasing by 16% with expenses increasing by 18, and I believe headcount up, I want to say 13%. I just wondered if the headcount increase we're seeing are from the supervisory and licensing side, or is it more broadly just across the organization?
Madam President, it's primarily supervising and licensing where that headcount is increasing.
Any further questions, Senator Cunningham? Would any other senator get? Senator Tawana Tanek, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I believe that I mentioned this in response to perhaps something that the AG raised maybe a couple of months ago about the FATF, upcoming FATF, and increased supervision and inspection. And I'd like to raise it again under this report. I noted that the Bermuda Monetary Authority, because it has been announced for the last 2 years that there will be increased inspections, increased supervision in the lead up and the rollout to FATF. However, I noticed that this year, the Bermuda Monetary Authority says that they've completed 29 on-site inspections and 147 supervisory meetings and 113 desk, reviews or inspections. However, in 2024, they completed 23 on-site, so that's just an increase of 6, and 150 supervisory meetings. So in actual fact, more than they completed when they were supposed to be ramping up. So I would like to know, and what brought that to my mind was actually the fact that there were 4.02 million less penalties. And so that got me thinking, is it because there are less inspections, less supervision, or as the minister quipped, was it because people were more compliant? So I'd like a little bit more about that and to see how those numbers measure with what we're constantly being told that it's actually ramping up when it's pretty much the same or even less in some areas. So that's my first question. My second,
Can you repeat the question?
yeah.
Specifically?
So
Please.
we've been constantly told that there will be an increase and a ramping up of inspections and on-site supervisions in effort to get Bermuda ready. The BMA's report actually says that as well. And so when I look at it, in 2024, there were 23 on-site inspections. And in 2025, 29. That's just an increase of 6. In 2024, there were 150 supervisory meetings. And in 2025, 147. So there were actually less. So I would like a little bit more understanding of why there were less when we were supposed to be ramping up. That's my first question. My second one is with regard to the 342 people. So gaining 41 people it's that's a lot over a year. And again, I contrast that with the fact that when it comes to something that we're supposed to be ramping up with, we actually see less being done. So I would like to know what the main areas that those hires were actually in. And additionally, I would like to know how many of those hires are Bermudian PRC spouse of versus on work permit, and how many are also working remotely, so i.e. not in Bermuda. Thank you.
Madam, I do this all the time, sorry. Turn it off when I should be turning it on. Madam President, with regard to the second question, I definitely can say that that is very specific information, which the BMA will have to have an opportunity to go back and glean that specific information. Is very specific around the makeup of the FTEs or the employees that have been hired. But I do believe that my colleague wanted to give intervention with regard to the FATF supervisory visits, et cetera. Is that correct, AG?
Madam AG,
If I may, Madam President, just a point point of clarification, given that Senator Tannock referenced comments that I had made previously in the paper regarding FATF. And I wanted to make sure, and certainly for the listening public, to caution against conflating the on-site inspections related to the AML, ATF, anti-money laundering, terrorist financing regime versus the regular course of on-site supervisions in the insurance and reinsurance sector, which would be operational. So I think that just care should be taken not to conflate those two sets of on-site supervisions. They are different in the nature of the assessment. The second thing is the number of assessments is not indicative that there isn't more work. So what we understand is that the nature of the assessments may be different. So what you might have only 4 additional assessments, it doesn't mean that assessments haven't been ramped up. It's the nature of the level of assessment that is different. And so just putting on the hat of the FATF hat again as the minister responsible for proceeds of crime, one of the things that has come out of our ongoing readiness for the 5th round is, yes, we need to have clear evidence of on-site examinations, but the number is not the question. It is the quality of the assessment rather than the number of them that would be what the assessors will be looking at. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam AG. Senator Tannock.
Yes, thank you, Madam AG, for clarifying that. I should have been more specific. The numbers I was referring to were directly under anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, AML, ATF supervision. They were not under general insurance supervision. So if it's the case that the numbers that I'm looking at that say 29 on-site visits, 13 desk-based, 147 supervisory include insurance inspections as well, and not just AML, ATF, then I would actually like a breakdown of what is what in these numbers, because the figures I took were specifically cited in the report for AML, ATF, which I understand that it's not in the AG's purview to provide those numbers. So I guess that's a supplementary question for clarity. If inspections and on-site visits are being double counted in insurance inspection, supervisory, and AML, ATF. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Minister.
Yes, thank you. Madam President, I am informed that the AG is correct in her assessment of what is happening with regard to the assessments that are taking place. It is the depth and the comprehensive nature of what is occurring when one is speaking about ramping up. So again, it is not specifically the number, it is the quality, the type of reporting, the compliance, et cetera, that is referred to when one discusses ramping up, in particular as regard to the different assessments that are taking place.
Thank you, Minister. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Senator Rogers, you have the floor.
Good morning again.
Morning.
We'd certainly like to thank the government for the report. It's on time. Based on the Premier's comments before he left for Carnival, he stated that he has tasked the government to provide for the betterment of Bermuda not to produce antiquated historical reports. Sorry, not to produce historical reports. So I'm curious, what criteria does the government use when deciding which reports to produce on time?
Madam President, I think you know
Point
what
of
my
order,
response
I
will
was
be.
just going to say,
That is not
Senator
the
Rogers,
subject
the
of
question
this.
on the statement that was presented is what
Right.
they're
The
expecting.
statement that was presented was on time as it was legislatively required. But there are a number of other, annual reports that have not been presented on time. So there must be
Point
a
of order, Madam
criteria.
President. Point of
Senator-
order.
Senator Rogers.
No, I'm just explaining my question.
Point of order, Madam President.
Minister?
I do believe that the senator is maybe inadvertently misleading the House and the listening public. The statement presented today was specifically about the Bermuda Monetary Authority annual report, trying to slide in other questions around what has been discussed in other places inappropriate at this time. The questions should be around this particular statement alone.
So my understanding, for clarity, is that there were no discussions or deliberations on ensuring that this report was presented on time. That's my understanding.
Madam President, Madam President, I'm not even sure how to answer that question. So I'm not, Madam President, with your leave, I will not respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rogers. Senator Tannock, you have the floor.
She's already had.
Point
of
of
order, Madam
sorry.
Questions?
I actually had to clarify. I misspoke earlier, and maybe I misled the House and the public. I said there were 113 desk reviews. There were 13, not 113. And I just wanted to clarify that the minister said that a response will be provided on my question number 2. Is that correct?
Madam President, if you don't mind, although I will say that Senator Tannock has had an opportunity to have her questions during this question period. Thank you for the clarification. And so, yes, I will respond. We will be able to provide clarification of the specific numbers that she has asked for.
Thank you, Minister. I appreciate that. And with your leave, we have exhausted the questions then on this statement. And I thank the Minister for responding. We will now move on with our orders. Sorry. I thought I hadn't done this one, first reading draft bills. I haven't done, okay. Yeah, all right. Senators, we'll now move on with item number 13, the orders of the day. And the first order of the day is the second reading of the Pensions Increase Amendment Act 2026, and that is also in the name of Senator the Honorable Crystal Caesar, the spokesperson for Finance. We'll give the minister a chance to gather herself and she can present her bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the provisions of Standing Order 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the bill entitled Pension Increase Amendment Act 2026.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Pension Increase Amendment Act 2026 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise today to move that the bill entitled the Pension Increase Amendment Act 2026 be now read. This bill has a clear purpose. It delivers the 10% increase for public sector retirees that was spoken to in the budget statement earlier this year. Public service pension benefits have been frozen since 2014. That has been raised with me, but with the Minister of Finance, by retirees, by unions, and in many other different forums over the years across the country. These are former teachers, nurses, police officers, firefighters, corrections officers, administrative officers, and many other public officers who worked across government and gave years of service to this country. Retirees have seen their costs go up. They have served Bermuda. They have done their part, and they have awaited a long time for this increase. Madam President, it would not have been responsible to simply promise an increase without first doing the work required to strengthen the Public Service Superannuation Fund. That is why the Public Service Superannuation Stabilization Amendment Act 2025 was passed. That legislation put the fund on a sustainable path. At that time, we made clear that stabilizing the fund was the first step. It created the capacity for government to responsibly consider pension increases during this fiscal year after consultation with the actuaries and the Public Service Superannuation Board. Madam President, that is exactly what happened. Following consultation with the actuaries and the Public Service Superannuation Board, the government is now able to move forward with this 10% increase. We said we would stabilize the fund. We said that once that work was done, we would look to provide relief to public sector retirees, and we are now delivering on that. The bill before this Honorable House amends the Pension Increase Act 1972 to provide a 10% increase in pensions payable under the Public Service Superannuation Act 1981 and any act repealed by that act. The bill also applies to pensions under the Ministers and Members of the Legislature Salaries and Pensions Act 1975, consistent with the recommendations made by the committee, which reviewed ministers and members of the legislature salaries and pensions. The increase is effective from the 1st of April 2026. It is intended that payments will begin in October 2026, inclusive of the retroactive payments due from 1st of April 2026. Madam President, this is not a return to the automatic annual cost of living increases. The government must continue to manage the fund responsibly. We must continue to protect its long-term sustainability. We are now in a position to provide this 10% increase, and we are doing so. Madam President, some will say that 10% is not enough. And we understand that after so many years without an increase, people would want more. That is what we can responsibly afford at this time, while protecting the fund for the long term. However, this is a real increase that is being delivered after the government did the hard work to place the fund in a sustainable path. Madam President, the bill also sits alongside the wider work this government has done to support seniors and retirees. Since returning to office in 2017, this government has increased social insurance pensions in line with inflation. We have also expanded health benefits that matter to retirees. HIP and Future Care policyholders now benefit from annual physicals without copays, and government has also expanded GEHI benefits so that public sector retirees covered by GEHI will benefit from improved access to annual examinations without the previous out-of-pocket costs. Supporting retirees is not only about pension income. It is also about reducing the cost of care, improving access to preventative health services, and helping people manage their health before small issues become more serious and more expensive. Madam President, the government has taken the hard decisions required to strengthen the fund. Because of that work, we can now deliver this 10% increase in pension benefits to our public sector retirees. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Caesar, spokesperson for Finance in the Senate. Would any senator care to speak? Senator Cunningham, first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. And happy to confirm the opposition's support for this bill. Obviously, the 10% increase to our public servants in retirement is a welcome relief. I think, you know, the fact that they haven't had an increase in over a decade speaks to the importance, and I guess this is what we were doing last year in session. My first question, and I've just tried to look it up, but can the minister tell the Senate who is on the committee of the ministers and members of the legislature's salaries committee? Just wondering that question. And then secondly, the actuarial costs. So obviously the PSSF was kind of rejigged. Can the government minister confirm the actuarial cost that's associated with this increase remains consistent with the trajectory of the funding that we're expecting after we passed the stabilization reforms last year? And then a final question is just simply, are we confident now that all groups of retirees have now been handed these increases, so we haven't inadvertently left anyone out for any reason? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. Senator John White, you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam President. So I'd like to raise a few points for clarity and transparency, and this is important I think, to the listening audience, because as legislators, we're basically approving increases to our own pension. So this needs to be clear and comprehensive. So this is a defined benefit plan. So as I understand it, it's based on the maybe the average pay of the last 3 or 5 years. So that being the case, it doesn't matter whether it was last updated in 2013 or 1995 or last year for that matter. If it's based on the last 3 years of earnings, then that item seems to be irrelevant to me. So for the listening audience, a defined benefit plan guarantees payments, and it's a very rich plan. So the private sector have defined contribution plans, which are much less rich because they're based on investment performance, and until the individual actually gets to retirement age, they won't know what their pension will be, whereas this plan for the civil servants and for legislatures is very different because you're guaranteed a payment. You know what that payment's going to be far in advance of your retirement age.
So the question is?
So I have two questions. One is, because it has to be, defined benefit plans they have to be accounted for in the current year. So this is going to be, well, first of all, my question is, how much is the increase in the deficit to both the government-funded public service superannuation fund plan and the members of the legislator fund as a result of its proposed increase? So there's a definitive number that the actuaries would have calculated and that the governance bodies would have approved. So it's got to be in the millions of dollars for certain if it's a 10% increase. So number one is, what is that number? And number two, how many members are included in these two plans who will benefit from this decision that's being asked today? So thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator John White. I know Senator Tannock, you have the question. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. And I wholeheartedly support an increase in pensions, not penalties, for our civil servants. So my first question is, gosh, it just left me. Think Tawana. Oh, right. Okay. So my first point is actually a drafting point, and it's not just being a stickler for drafting. When you look at the bill, it says in the introduction, whereas, go down 1, 2, 3, 3 lines, in any act repealed by that act, go down even further, and under section 2, item 2, increase of pensions, 1A, any act repealed by that act. That's actually incorrect because you cannot repeal an act that's not in effect. That's incorrect because you cannot amend an act that's been repealed because it's not in effect. So you can't say that you can't draft and say that you're going to repeal something that no longer exists. You're going to amend something that no longer exists, sorry. So it's just a note about that wording, and just to say that I think that should be reviewed, because once an act has been repealed, it's unable to be amended. And I note that at least in 2 places, it's been indicated that this bill seeks to amend something that has been repealed, which in actual fact it cannot do. That it's technically impossible. So as written, this bill is actually it's inoperable. That's my first point. My second one is that I note that this is a one-time payment, one-time increase. So just to be clear, does that mean that after March 2027, this 10% will no longer be available? This 10% increase is just for April 2026 to March 2027. So just to be clear for the public, it is not a general 10% increase. It is an increase for one financial year. I just want to be clear. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. My third question is, does this apply to persons who opt to get a lump sum payment? So I'm sure the public will be aware that you can opt to get a certain amount, I think 25%, or I could be incorrect, but at least 25% of your pension up front. Does this apply to persons within this financial year that this that this bill seeks to address? Does this mean that those persons will get 10% more on their 25% lump sum? Or is this only for persons who do not choose the lump sum route? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tanner. For the listening audiences, the minister is now in communication with the technical officers who can assist with the questions, answers to the questions. Sorry. For the listening audience, I will just repeat that the minister is still in consultation with the technical officer who is in the chamber at the moment. She's seeking assistance in answering the questions that have been raised by senators.
Madam President, as it is proper procedure for me to wrap up discussion, I didn't know if any other colleagues wanted to, or wanted to invite any other colleagues who wanted to weigh in on the discussion before I do provide additional input on the questions that have been raised to me. So I wanted to at least give other senators an opportunity to either comment or ask questions.
Senators, the minister is asking if there are any further questions or additional questions. Vice President John White?
So, Minister, just to be clear, does this increase involve everybody who is currently in these plans? So anybody who is currently employed will become a retiree at some point in the future. So that's, Mike, I just want to make certain that we understand how broad the membership of people who will benefit from this increase is. So, and that led to my question about how many people are included who benefit from this. So, yes.
Minister, it seems that it's the only question.
Okay. All right, Madam President, it appears that I have garnered most comments and questions at this point. And so I will attempt to deal with the comments and questions already raised. I think what we want to ensure is that we are making it clear that this is for the benefit of retirees, right? We have not, public service retirees have not had a pension increase in 10 years. And we are doing so in a responsible fashion. And we have consulted and liaised with the actuaries and received proper calculations, et cetera. And so with some of the answers that I will give, I will be able to cover some of the concerns that have been raised. Now, with regard to the question around the committee of the members who review the salaries for the members of the legislature, that committee is actually appointed appointed at the discretion of the governor in conjunction with the premier. And so I'm not sure if the question was specifically around who did it previously, what it is now, but that would actually, we would have to go back and look at the specific members. I don't have it in front of me right now, who it was previously, but that is typically at that their discretion. So it's not a specific not correct. So it's at the discretion of the governor and the premier. So it's not a standing committee of the parliamentary group. So it'd be difficult to give you that information right now, to be quite honest. Madam President, the question was around whether the actuarial costs have remained consistent with the stabilization reforms. And the Ministry of Finance actually did give specific criteria to actuaries with regard to ensuring that at least 90% of the funding levels would be retained for the next 40 years. And so that was the criteria upon which the 10% number was derived, such that we could maintain at least 90% of funding for the next 40 years. And so that is the criteria upon which the stabilization reforms were derived. I believe yes, there was a question around who would benefit from this, what sectors of government, and it does actually speak to all retirees of the government sector. And so that would actually take us to the question posed by Senator White with regard to how many individuals this would benefit. And the number for the members of the PSSF, it would be around 3,700. But we would have to dig a little bit further into the specific number around what ministers or members of the legislature that would affect at this particular moment. So we can't recall that specifically, but that is something that we can get back to him on. And with regard to the additional question, this does actually cover current and, of course, any future retirees. And so they would also have benefit of this particular 10% at this time. And the question regarding the specific wording around amending the legislation. It was, or the language contained in the in this amendment was actually amended in another place. And so I'm not sure if Senator Tannock is looking at the most recent iteration. However, there was an amendment on the floor of the House which amended the specific language to speak specifically to what period, what legislation would affect. And if I could just go and just bear with me, Madam President. Clause 3, although we're not actually a committee, Clause 3 does actually speak to the Section 3 of the Pension and Increase Amendment Act and Suspension Act of 2014 to allow Section 2 of the Principal Act as amended by this bill to operate from the 1st of 2026. So I'm not sure if that is what she's referring, but it has been amended. What was originally the original amendment was amended on the floor of the House to ensure that the legislation would properly affect whatever legislation is in effect and can be amended so that the increase would be retroactive from April 1st, 2026. So there was a suspension in 2014, and this particular piece of legislation actually repeals that suspension so that this particular act can be put in place so that members or retirees could benefit from the 10% increase. So it was a suspended act from 2014, and now this is repealing that. This amendment is repealing that. Then there was a question with regard to whether the 10% increase would affect lump sum payments versus annual, those who are receiving annual payments. And the increase is effective for any employee or any retiree. It's not specific to whether it's those who are taking a lump sum or annual payments, all would benefit from this 10% increase. And just bear with me, Madam President, I just want to make sure that I have covered most of the questions that have been asked. Oh, yes. I did not specifically answer with regard to the funding levels or the increased cost to the funds. That actually had been debated as part of the previous discussion and debate around the stabilization fund, et cetera. So the funding levels or the number regarding the funding levels is can be provided, but we'd have to actually go back and pull that number for Senator White specifically, who asked that question. But we do actually have that number. We just can't put our fingers on it right at this time. So we can provide that specific number. I know that is an area of concern. I know he's spoken about that previously, but it has come here previously as well. So we all would have the information as part of previous debates that we've had, but we would have to go back and pull that up. We don't have it specifically at our fingers right now. Madam President, I believe that the majority of the questions have all been answered. And with that said, I'm glad to hear that fellow senators actually do support this increase, as we know that the cost of living in Bermuda has increased. And we're not quite sure what effects from wars, et cetera, across the world will continue to have on the cost of living, not just for those who haven't retired, but specifically for our retirees. This government has continued to ensure that retirees have better access to benefits, and now, of course, increased pension funds on a annual basis. We want to ensure that we are being responsive, Madam President, and this is not only a sensible increase, but also a well thought through and measured approach in which retirees will be able to see benefits going forward in what they are receiving. I have in my own family 2 retirees from the public service, and I know that they are quite excited to know that this is happening. Whilst it may take a little while to work through how the systems calculate this, and that is why the October date has been proffered. Nonetheless, I do believe that this signals that the government is responsive and wants to ensure that we are taking care of our retirees. And so with that, Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Pension Increase Amendment Act 2026 be now read for a second time.
Minister, there are a number of people who raised their hands.
Oh, sorry.
However, you did give them an opportunity to ask questions, and it's up to you now if you are going to entertain any other questions, because you are now wrapping up your.
Yes, Madam President, and I'm happy to. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm happy to engage with senators following this debate, but I do believe that as standing orders indicates that I typically am the last person to speak on the bill. And so I'm now ready to, and I've already put on the floor that I move that it be read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? We have 2 objections. Yes, it was Senator Tannick and Senator John White are objecting. We don't have 3. Yeah. Standing orders, and when everyone was given an opportunity to ask questions, once the minister has started to ask the questions, I mean, that is, we move on from the questions.
That's not how proceedings go.
So with 2 objections. So, sorry, no, if more than one, then yes. So we will take a vote.
They're not following procedures, Madam President, respectfully.
For the second
Point of
reading.
order, Madam President.
Madam President, this is highly unusual. We have a bill which has enjoyed the support of the opposition,
Yes.
right? And now we're going to go to a second reading for the purpose of what? Extending the question time when the minister
No, we're
formally
not.
asked, were there any questions? Well, what would be the point of objecting to the second reading at this stage?
I would just like to remind senators, at the conclusion of the debate on the principles of the bill, the mover of the bill shall have the right to speak last, and the minister has the right to speak last. And so I had given her the permission to speak last, and even the senators are now objecting to the passage of the bill. The second reading, sorry.
Just for the record, I want to be clear. The independent senators are objecting to the second reading of the bill.
Yes,
The 2 independent senators.
2 independent senators.
Thank you.
But what are the objections for?
They do this.
Okay. Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of. I thought it had to be 3
The
or more.
standing orders indicate that if it's more than one person, so we'll go through the
Okay.
process.
Thank you, Madam President.
I'll read the senators. I'm going to read the standing order 14, objection to the motion, and this is subsection 3 on 14 is if more than one member objects to a If more than one member objects, a division shall be taken whereupon each member in turn, beginning with the opposition members and followed by the government and then the independent members, shall declare aye or nay, and the clerk shall make a note of each declaration as made. The standing orders, senators need to apprise themselves of the standing orders, so I've asked the clerk now to do a vote.
A motion has been moved for the second reading of the Pensions Increase Amendment Act 2026. If you are in agreement with the second reading, say aye. If you are against, say nay. Senator Cunningham.
Aye.
Senator Rogers.
Aye.
Senator Smith.
Aye.
Senator Bell.
Aye.
Minister Caesar.
Aye.
Senator Fubler.
Aye.
Senator Simmons.
Aye.
Minister Wilkerson.
Aye.
Senator Tannock. Senator White.
Nay.
Madam President. With a vote of 9-2, the motion is affirmed.
So, Minister, you can continue pass your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill entitled the Pension Increase Amendment Act 2026 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill do now pass.
Is there any objection to the passage of the bill? Senator Tannock.
So you can say the bill passes with objection.
It's passed,
by-
yeah.
Oh, you can say with
Yes.
objection by.
Yes,
Senator Tannock.
okay. The bill has been, the bill has been passed with one objection by Senator Tannock. Oh, God, not again to the passage of the bill, so we got to do. Senators and listening audience, we have two objections to the passage, the final passage of the bill, and so we will have to do another vote. It's not called a vote. What is it called? Division.
Madam President, point of clarification. I thought you needed 3 in order,
Only for third reading.
It's only for
Okay.
the third readings.
It has been moved that the bill entitled the Pensions Increase Amendment Act 2026 be passed. If you are in agreement, say aye. If you are against, say nay. Senator Cunningham.
Aye.
Senator Rogers.
Aye.
Senator Smith.
Aye.
Senator Bell.
Aye.
Minister Caesar.
Aye.
Senator Fubler.
Aye.
Senator Simmons.
aye.
Minister Wilkerson.
Aye.
Senator Tannock. Senator White.
Nay.
Madam President.
Aye.
And with a vote of 9-2, the motion is affirmed.
The bill is passed. Thank you, Senators. We'll move on with our agenda, our orders. Item number 14, motions, there are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak?
President, we have another
Oh,
bill.
I beg your pardon.
You're ready to be
Oh, my, I think I need to just depart and let one of the other senators take over. I do apologize, senators. We have a, orders of the day, we have a second reading of the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Amendment Act 2026, and that is in the name of Senator Lauren Bell, Junior Minister for Economy and Labor. I do apologize, senators. Senator Bell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the provisions for Standing Order 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the bill entitled the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Amendment Act 2026.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill entitled the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Amendment Act 2026 be now read for a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? Second reading. No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'm pleased to introduce to the Senate today a bill entitled the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Amendment Act 2026, which provides for the chairman of the Immigration Appeal Tribunal to dismiss an appeal where the appellant has been non-responsive and has failed to pursue his appeal. Madam President, at present, the Immigration Appeal Tribunal does not have the explicit authority to dismiss appeals that have been left unresolved and effectively abandoned by appellants. In practice, this has resulted in cases remaining in abeyance for extended periods, and in some instances for several years, due to a lack of communication or action from the appellant. This situation creates administrative inefficiencies and contributes to an inaccurate representation of active caseloads and undermines the tribunal's ability to effectively manage its proceedings. Madam President, the bill amends the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act 1956 to expressly empower the chairman of the Immigration Appeal Tribunal to dismiss appeals that have remained unresolved and in abeyance for a period exceeding 6 months. The amendments also provide for the Immigration Appeal Tribunal to make rules governing the way in which the chairman may dismiss an appeal and provide that the appellant, if aggrieved by a decision to dismiss his appeal, may appeal to the Supreme Court. Madam President, the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Appeal Amendment Rules 2026, which are subject to the negative resolution procedure, will prescribe the process by which such dismissals may take place, ensuring that appellants are afforded procedural fairness. In particular, where appellants have failed to pursue their appeals and the chairman has considered the appeals should be dismissed, the appellants will be notified of the intention to dismiss their appeal and given a final opportunity to proceed. Appellants will be given 30 days from the date of the notice to make written representations to the chairman, giving reasons why the appeal should not be dismissed. If no written representations are made to the chairman within 30 days, then the chairman shall notify the parties to the appeal in writing that it is dismissed. If written representations are made to the chairman within the required time frame, the chairman shall consider the representations and consult with members of the panel before deciding whether or not to dismiss the appeal. Again, Madam President, for clarity, parties to the appeal will be formally notified of the dismissal in writing. Madam President, by enabling the tribunal to resolve dormant matters, these reforms shall support more accurate reporting, improve case management, and enhance public confidence in the appeals process. These amendments are practical and necessary step. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator Lauren Bell, Junior Minister of Economy and Labor. Would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the Junior Minister for that brief. On behalf of the opposition, I can say that we support this bill. It's obviously short but needed, creating a mechanism that you can close out these appeals. I do have a few questions. One being, it speaks about rules that the chairman is going to come up with. I was just wondering when they would be brought forward to the House or the Senate. Secondly, the bill describes failure to pursue, and I'm just wondering what that means. So where does the clock start? Is it from the last active step taken in the appeals process? Is it the date of filing? I just think, after that notice, I think you said 30 days to make the representation. I just wondered if more clarity could become around the definition of that failed to pursue. And then thirdly, and this is, I guess, possibly more of a statement than a question, but a lot of these appellants before the tribunal are likely to be facing quite real obstacles. So there could be language barriers, securing representation. Obviously, none of this withholds our support, but, just, I guess, will there be things within the rules that build in a fair notice and cure step so that the power of the chairman is used genuinely for abandoned appeals rather than penalising people who have, other things outside of their control? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Those are your 3 questions. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this bill? Hearing none, we will wait to receive a response from Senator Lauren Bell.
Thank you, Madam President. And while I wait for some support from a technical officer, I just want to first thank the opposition for the support of this bill. It is appreciated. And I just want to offer up some clarification. So at first, the consideration for dismissal of appeals only occurs when the appeal remains unresolved in an abeyance for a period exceeding 6 months. So that period has to come first before written notice is given. And within that written notice, they have 30 days to provide a response. And for clarification, also for my colleagues, the rules will be made once the bill is enacted. Okay, I believe that was a response to your first question. And just for further clarification, there are already steps within the appeal process that include submissions of grounds. It is this specifically speaks to is when it's gone silent that the dismissal is considered. And we currently have 2 cases that this is affecting. One that's been laying in abeyance for a year, another one's been for 2 years. Madam President, I believe I have answered all the questions.
Yes, indeed. You can proceed to move your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Bermuda Immigration Protection Amendment Act 2026 be now read for a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Bermuda Immigration Protection Amendment Act 2026 be now read for a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Thank you. Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill do not pass. Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The bill is passed. Thank you, Senator Bell. And that concludes our orders of the day, and we'll move on to item number 14, motions. There are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Would any senator care? Senator White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a sad one to offer condolences to the family of Rakai Rayner, who tragically passed away in the weekend. So he, along with his father, who we knew as Grapes very well, was part of a very close-knit community at Spice One's Riding, which included Senator Bell and her daughter many years ago. They're a lovely family. Grapes, who we knew well, has a heart of gold. And so when we heard the tragic news of Rakai's accident on Sunday, our family was devastated, as was, I'm sure, much of the community. So just want to offer my condolences to the family. A very difficult time for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator John White. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator Tannock, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to also associate myself with those condolences for the family of Mr. Reyna and also the other two gentlemen, one of whom was my neighbor and showed great kindness, at one point in time my neighbor, and showed great kindness to my daughter when she was a little girl. So I mourn their passing. And the second one is to send my condolences to the family of Sir John Swan. As you recall, when we were last in the Senate, it was indicated that we would get a chance to speak at the special sitting to give condolences. This never materialized. And as a result, I think it was a grave oversight that this house, this chamber, did not get a chance to acknowledge and put on record our condolences. And so I said something on LinkedIn, and I will just abbreviate that with a story. I have 3 brothers, the youngest of which is 38, and it's an oft-told story in my family. My mom laughs when she recounts it, that when my youngest brother was about 6 or 7 years old, they ran into Sir John at a function, some function or the other. And Sir John asked my brother everything. What year are you in? How's school coming? I hope you're doing well. Are you obeying your mom? And after he left, my brother said, "Mommy, how does Sir John know me?" It wasn't does he know me, it was how does he know me? And that was the impact that he had. And as I mentioned somewhere else, he was without doubt probably one of the most prominent Bermudians. However, when you were in his presence, you felt like the most important person. And that is a quality that you just can't emulate, you can't fake it. It is a sincerity of heart and spirit that will be truly missed, as well as his contributions to the international business sector, for which we all benefit today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Would any other senator care? Senator Lindsay Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually want to say condolences to Rakai and his family as well. I'm not sure if everybody knows in the chamber that is Minister Joshie Adams' younger brother. And I was actually with Joshie when he received the news. And their family is a great family. And I just want to wish his mom, his dad, his brothers, his nieces, his nephews, but especially his daughter and his son, condolences. He loved life and he loved them with all his heart. So condolences to the Adams Reyna family. We're praying with you, and I know your PLP family stands behind you. I also do want to align myself with the condolences with Sir John Swan. Having been the last person to actually be from the PLP in an election with him in February 2025. It was an honor to stand with him and to have the little conversations and the pictures and the interactions on that day. He was a great man, and he will be sorely missed. So condolences to his family as well, and to Bermuda. He will be a big miss. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons. Senator Cunningham, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. It is a privilege to add to the tributes of condolences to the family of Sir John Swan. And I think I'll start by saying most people's awareness of politics doesn't start when they get into a chamber or into the House. For me, it came around a dining room table, listening to stories from my grandmother, Rosemary Champness Clipper. She worked in Hamilton Parish in the formative years of the United Bermuda Party, and basically help the Bailey's Bay branch bring out candidates for every election. Most people would have known her as the manager of the perfume factory, but in the political space, she was the person behind the scenes that got things done. And Sir John always spoke very fondly of her. And whenever I had the chance to meet him, he would always recall those kind of early years with affection. But through those conversations, I also came to realize what politics was actually about, not just elections and legislation, but people, communities, that shared belief in the future of our island. And Sir John was, quite frankly, an extraordinary man. He understood that our small island could stand and think boldly with the rest of the world. I have a lot to thank him for the move to the international business, with positioning us as a trusted partner to the United States in particular. And I now, count myself amongst many that have enjoyed their careers basically from Sir John. So on behalf of myself and my family, I would like to pass on my deepest condolence to his family. I would also now like to congratulate the awardees of the National Trust Awards, in particular the President's Award, which went to David Lang and the Friends of Verdmont. They are a group that includes my father, Jonathan Clipper, and my aunt, Ros Clipper. But they are dealing with the removal of invasive species up at Verdmont property and the preservation of that site. And I think, as a group of retirees, I think they very much enjoy getting together monthly to clear everything out. I also want to extend congratulations to the United States on their 250th year of independence. So to our American friends, colleagues, happy Independence Day. I hope it's a great weekend. And I think we look forward to that partnership and growth of that partnership in the future. It would also now be remiss of me not to recognize the class of 2026, having had the graduations in the last week. So we've had the graduations of Berkeley and Cedarbridge yesterday, as well as the graduates of our private schools, and a lot of Bermudians who are overseas completing degrees, designations, any qualifications. I think just to say we're proud of you, and we look forward to you coming home and contributing to the future of our island. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice President John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Hearing others speak about Sir John, I just want to offer my views as well. I had the honor of being with Sir John and family for his last few hours. We were a very close friend, and in my view, there's no person who has done more for Bermuda, both on island and on the world stage, as Sir John. We were great friends, deepened by following the death of his lovely wife, Jackie. Sir John and I would meet for breakfast every Saturday morning, have done for the last 10 years or so. Whatever the topic, family, history, politics, race, the economy, he always spoke with knowledge and passion. He didn't care about rumors. He was always driven by ideas, and he was a contrarian. If I gave my opinion, he would often take an opposite view. Done, I believe, to expand my mind and to consider angles that I had not considered. He had a love of Bermuda and a yearning to learn unparalleled by anyone I've ever met. He had a special and unique talent to make you feel better about yourself after engaging with him. You almost always left with a smile on your face. If Sir John liked and trusted you, there was nothing he wouldn't do for you. I'm a better person because of my close friendship with Sir John. So to Sir John's children, Allison, Amanda, and Nicholas, thank you for sharing your extraordinary father with all of Bermuda. He was the best of Bermuda. I will miss him greatly. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator John White. Would any other senator care to speak? I don't know who to speak first, but Minister Crystal Caesar.
Yes, thank
You
you,
have
Madam
the floor.
President, and I thank you to my colleague for being such a gentleman and allowing me to go before him. Thank you. Madam President, this is an exciting and inspirational time of year, and as my colleague Senator Cunningham just intimated with regard to graduation ceremonies, I've also attended some leaving ceremonies around the island. So this is a pivotal time in the year for young people. From preschool all the way on up. I actually have a cousin who's moving to senior school. So we don't call them graduations at that age. Apparently we call them leaving ceremonies. And so he's having his leaving ceremony this morning, or had it. So I want to say congratulations to Ever Levrock, who is going into P1 at West Pembroke School in September. Can't wait to see him. But I've also attended other leaving ceremonies, other awards and certificate scholarship proceedings, and also graduations, most recently attending the Cedar Bridge Academy's graduation yesterday. And Madam President, I just want to say congratulations to the students. You know, they, and not just public schools, but across the island. Students look forward to the culmination of their years of hard work. Whether they are high honors or not, at the end of the day, they have reached a milestone. And I want to say congratulations to them, because quite frankly, most of them at age, say 35, if they're looking for a job, nobody cares whether you had high honors or not. They want to know that you finished. And I think whilst we want to give accolades, and I will do so at another date on those particular high honors awardees, scholarship recipients as well, I just want to say congratulations to all young people for continuing with the perseverance and diligence to getting to this particular point in their lives. It should not be taken lightly. In other countries, education is not free as it is in Bermuda. And so we want to ensure that we recognize and value what education has done, can do, and will be able to do for our young people. So I just take this time to say congratulations to all who have graduated, leavers, and movers on. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Minister Caesar. Senator Misha Fabula, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I, of course, would like to associate myself with the condolences to the Rayner family. Both Rikai and Ricky are residents of constituency 30, and as such, you know, we interacted on more than one occasion, and so it was a great shock and disheartening to see the news over the weekend. As I have already, I want to extend my sincere condolences to the family, and you know, in typical Bermudian spirit, they are celebrating his life already. So the event in the neighborhood last evening to celebrate, and I hope they find peace. You know, working through grief can be challenging, especially when the end is unexpected. Moving on to also highlight the what would be the 103rd birthday of my great uncle Gilbert Darrell today, July 1st, a former parliamentarian. He passed in 2018. And then thank you. Moving on to more congratulatory tones, I'd like to associate myself with the congratulations of the Bermuda education students, both primary, secondary, and high school students. On congratulations on completing another year, and as well congratulations to the educators themselves. I'm sure they are also seeing welcome relief, my spouse included. She's someone who's now looking forward to a respite and opportunity for some professional development outside of the classroom during the summer. And a special congratulations to those students who, as my colleague mentioned, are moving on to new schools, moving up, and including my son. He's leaving Warwick Preschool and moving up to Purvis. And so we're looking forward to that change in September, if for no other reason than that I only have one destination to take the kids in the morning, as opposed to both Warwick Preschool and Purvis. And also, closing out my congratulations, I'd like to extend congratulations to the Parliament of Anguilla, as well as the ministry responsible for technology. Apologies, I don't have the full name now. It is quite long. You know, another small island nation. The ministers have to wear several hats. But in conjunction with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and UNESCO, they last week hosted the first ever Caribbean AI workshop. And I had the pleasure of attending, and it was both engaging and informative, and brought together legislators from across the Caribbean, both in the Commonwealth as well as across Parliamericas. So we had representatives from St. Martin, as well as legislatures from the UK. And so even outside of the content focused on AI specifically, was a great networking opportunity to build relationships across our legislatures. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator Misha Fabula. Would any other senator care to speak? Yeah. Senator Tariq Dunbar-Smith.
Thank you, Madam President, and good afternoon, as it's after the noon hour, to our listening audience and my Senate colleagues. I want to associate myself with the condolences for the family of Pudgy Rayner. Also, with the passing of Sir John Swan. A quick story, it's I would believe in P4, I was 8 or 9 at Gilbert Institute, and Sir John came by the classroom there in Paget to visit our students. And I remember putting my hand up and saying, "Oh, you know my Nana." And he says, "I know your Betty's grandson." And as you all know from previously how highly I speak of my grandmother Betty Smith, and when he said that to me, I would tell you, even as a 45-year-old man, 46 on Sunday, it still radiates in my heart that Sir John Swan knew who I was as a young boy. And we actually took a photo, and my mother's other son, who's not my brother, is actually on it trying to find a picture, because I believe it was in the mid-ocean when I'm grinning with all my teeth showing when we took a photo together back at Gilbert Institute. Sir John was definitely someone that I think from all political sides we looked at as someone who had Bermuda's best interests at heart, even though at times many might have disagreed politically. He definitely did what I think was in his heart for the betterment of Bermuda over the years, and he will be greatly missed, and condolences to his family and friends, and to Mr. White, who just spoke a bit of how close he was to Sir John Swan. Moving on to the congratulatories to the graduates of all the institutions in Bermuda and private schools, especially the Barclay Institute. Of course, you know, as a former Barclay, I know, and it was nice to see some videos of the cotillion to see that that's still going on, the tradition that we've had at the Barclay Institute for many years. And of course, I can't leave without giving everyone a Roman update. Roman has finished Beechwood Academy at 16 years old. He set his GCSEs, he pulled his hair out. I wish he would get a haircut, but he pulled his hair out. I'm so proud of you, Roman, and now he's moving on to Plymouth College in Plymouth in the UK at the ripe old age of 16. So congratulations to you, son. I'm glad you're home. I hope that you've done what you need to do before I get home this evening. Thank you, Madam President.
With that, would any others, I was asking if any other person wants to speak. And hearing none, then Madam AG, Minister Wilkerson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. At the end of this, I guess, period of congratulatory and obituary speeches, I certainly want to first join with colleagues in the condolences for Rakai Rayner and his family. As Minister, as Senator Lindsey Simmons has said, he is a brother of our colleague Joshua Adams, and so our hearts really go out to him. Rakai's mother, Karen Rayner, is, and I'm sure Madam President, from your profession, you know her. She's a forensic nurse, and I had the honor of adding her to the treatment of offenders board with her skill set, and her appointment is actually said to be effective today. So we were overjoyed with that, but certainly sad with the circumstances, and so our hearts and prayers go to Karen, and certainly to Rakai's children, Kylie and Koa, as well. And then on the note of obituary speeches as well, Madam President, we were certainly present together at the services and at the special sitting. So I think when you think everything has been said about Sir John, there's always more to say. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a personal story because he touched people individually. That was the person that he was. But I do want to take this opportunity to express condolences to Senator White, because I do know that they were especially close friends. Yes. And you were missing from the chamber 2 weeks ago when Madam President did read your comments. So we took that to heart. And for myself, I was able to give very, very brief comments at the special sitting. I did not want to take a lot of time, but certainly I talked about the business community's debt of gratitude, certainly in the IB sector, with the underpinning of the 1986 tax treaty and the kind of audacity to go around the world to make that happen for the benefit of the Bermuda. Something I think about it often in our chambers. Shortly after I took appointment as the Attorney General, there was some tidying up going on, and the Solicitor General found the original of the 1986 tax treaty in chambers. We were able to have that document reviewed by the National Archives and submitted for safekeeping in the Bermuda National Archives for everyone to see. But certainly the story was told later that year at one of the insurance risk summits. And we were able to carry the tax treaty down to the Fairmount Hamilton Princess for Sir John to take a photo with it, with individuals who were with him as part of, that really historic negotiation. So again, just there is no way we can measure that impact for Bermuda. So our thoughts again remain with his family, with the children, and with his friends. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Minister Wilkerson, Madam AG. And with that, I would just like to associate myself with the condolences for Rakai Reyna. And I also have a new one, which is Daniel Edward Griffin, who was funeralized yesterday, and his family. But also associate myself with all the comments that have been spoken about Sir John. And I would just like to say that I was very, very pleased. I'm sure those of you who were present or to know that the Bermuda CPA branch, there was a meeting here in the chamber whereby many of the former ministers and senators who were present during Sir John's time spoke. And it was the family were present, and it was a very moving, I think, experience, even for the children, to hear all the colleagues who had served with Sir John in politics in Bermuda, to hear their comments. And it was a very moving 1.5 hours, and they really expressed their appreciation. And I know Madam AG also spoke, and I was very pleased that that meeting took place, that CPA, because that gave so many people an opportunity who had served with him to express their own not only emotions and feelings about him, but the time that they spent with him in these chambers. So that was, I thought was, I just wanted you all to know that that took place. It was really moving ceremony, and it was greatly appreciated by Sir John's children. So, and I would just like to say that it was Senator Tannock who expressed, John White, your expressions of sympathy in our last meeting. So, to Sir John. And finally, I would just like to join everyone else here who have spoken about our graduates and all the schools. And as has been said, I certainly was present at Cedar Bridge when the minister was present, and it was that, and that's the first, I believe, Minister, the meeting of, since the change in the school system for the students, so many of the students to have an opportunity to graduate and to express how they felt about their experience at school. So with that, we'll move on then to Madam AG, the adjournment.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Wednesday, July 15th.
Thank you for that. And Senator Tannock was the first person who put her hand up to say she would like to speak on the motion to adjourn, and so do Senator
Yes.
Tannock, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. In 1968, the Bermuda Constitution Order established the role of the independent senator. The role of the independent senator is to act as an independent observer, to be objective, to provide scrutiny, and also to hold the government and the opposition to account. I'm sorry, I am so frustrated. I am so frustrated. And I am frustrated because when we tried to discuss this bill earlier today, it was a point made that it was the
Senator-
independent senators that were objecting.
Senator
Point of
Tannock.
order.
That I'm not
The
debating the
point-
bill. I'm not debating the bill.
No,
I'm not debating
it's
the
a point
bill.
of order. You don't have to debate, but to speak on it.
I'm not
is
speaking on the
inappropriate.
bill. I'm speaking on the role of the independent senator.
Madam President, it is your house, and you have the ability to either allow or disallow. However, the standing rules do speak to mentioning bills that have been previously debated in the House and speaking on that at further within Senate. Again, it's a part of the standing orders which govern this House.
Yes, Senator Tannock, I did express that you cannot speak on bills or anything that has already been presented.
I'm
in this
speaking on the
House.
role of the independent senator and my frustration that I feel that we are being obstructed in performing this role properly and to the ability that I think that the Bermudian public would allow us to do so. I am not speaking on this bill because this is not a one bill. This is not a one bill subject.
Point of
This is-
order, Madam President.
Minister?
Madam President, whilst I understand my colleagues' frustrations, I believe that it would be remiss if I did not mention that to put in the public arena that this particular House is somehow disallowing and somehow frustrating one's ability to execute their abilities. I believe that we need to be responsible in ensuring that we apprise ourselves and acquit ourselves of the rules. And one cannot get
not going
frustrated
to
if they
allow
are
her.
not actually using the rules as appropriate. This side of the House continues to ask for fellow senators to apprise themselves of the rules so that they can appropriately administer their rules as both independent and opposition senators. And so I cannot allow, and again, public standing orders indicate that you cannot impugn improper motives to other senators. And unfortunately, I believe that this particular senator's line and length with this particular motion to adjourn may be inadvertently doing so. Rules again state that you cannot do that.
Thank you. I was not impugning improper motive to any particular senator. I said that I felt that the independent senators, and certainly I cannot speak for Senator White, are being obstructed in performing their tasks to the best of our ability. And one thing I will say is that hit dogs holler.
Point of order, Madam President. That's not parliamentary language. I think that's very inappropriate. I actually think that to me it's questioning your ability to lead the Senate, and point of order, Madam President. I think this is not proper etiquette in the Senate.
Madam President, it is to the point now where these interruptions feel tantamount to harassment. I don't feel safe to be able to continue to say what I have to say in this climate. Thank you.
Vice President John White, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I just want to give my full support behind the comments just raised by my fellow independent senator. I think the role of the independent senator for the community is a very important one, and I share my colleagues' frustration at the moment with our inability to debate in
Point of order, Madam President, again.
manner that I think our community
I said point of order,
expects us
Madam
to.
President.
Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, I think that this is inappropriate, and I think that it's we have rules that we have to follow, and I understand we all get frustrated in different. I gave my point of order. It's inappropriate.
Senators, this is, I am going to suggest, senators, that we have a meeting outside of this chamber, if there is an expression of angst or whatever about any rule. I am also an independent senator and have been for the past 18, almost 19 years now. So I'm taking these comments to heart, and I think that I would like to know that we are appointed to these chambers to function as independent senators, government senators, or opposition. And that is our rule. And so if there is some angst or frustration, I am suggesting that right at this time, we cease this conversation and we have some discussion, because we are appointed, independent senators are appointed by the governor. And we have a role to play, but at the same time, we have standing orders that govern how we conduct ourselves. And so therefore, I am suggesting that at this stage, we cease any comment about any frustration on the airwaves at this time, and that we need to set aside some time to discuss the issues rather than have it out in the public domain. And I hope, independent senators, that you would agree with me. Senator Lindsey Swan? Lindsey, God. Now, I knew I need to get out of here. Simmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I have to find Mr. Swan. Madam President, it is my pleasure to extend a heartfelt congratulations to the graduates of our public schools. This graduating class has earned millions of dollars in scholarships, opened doors to universities, colleges, and educational opportunities across Bermuda and around the world. That extraordinary achievement is a testament to their hard work, determination, resilience, and the excellence that exists throughout our Bermuda public school system. Madam President, today we celebrate far more than completion of your secondary education. We celebrate perseverance, determination, resilience, and the countless hours of hard work that have brought them to this defining moment. They have dug deep, overcame challenges, and refused to give up. For that, each of our students should be incredibly proud. Madam President, I also want to acknowledge the parents, the guardians, grandparents, teachers, principals, school staff, and everyone who has supported these graduates through this journey. Their guidance, sacrifice, and encouragement and belief have helped shape these remarkable young people. Madam President, this PLP government has demonstrated its commitment to ensuring that no child is left behind, not simply through words, but through continued investment in our public school education, our teachers, and most importantly, our young people. We believe that every student deserves access to a quality education, and every child deserves the opportunity to reach their full potential, regardless of their circumstances. Madam President, investing in our children is one of the most important investments we can make in Bermuda's future, and we remain committed to strengthening our public schools and creating a pathway for every student to succeed. I also, Madam President, want to take this opportunity to thank my colleague, the Minister of Education, Minister Crystal Caesar, for remaining steadfast in her commitment to our children's education. Meaningful change requires vision, courage, perseverance, and I sincerely appreciate her continuing dedication to strengthening our public education system and ensuring every child has the opportunity to succeed. Madam President, as a chairperson for Cedar Bridge Academy, I was incredibly proud to be a part of yesterday's graduation ceremony. Watching our students cross the stage, hearing their stories, and celebrating their achievements was a reminder of the extraordinary talent, resilience, and promise that exists within our public school. But Madam President, I must pause here, and the reason why I made this motion to adjourn today. At this time, I left Cedar Bridge with a heavy heart. Although I was proud of our graduates, I must say you were there as well. It was not one, but more than one graduate that spoke about how having to overcome myths, stereotypes, and labels that have often come by the name of Cedar Bridge Academy and but as one student said, their cranberry sweater, While I was inspired by their courage, determination to prove these misconceptions wrong, I was sad that so many of our young people felt that they first had to overcome society's expectations before they could simply walk through the doors. As a community, we must do better. The challenge before us is not whether our young people are capable. They have already answered that question. We must uplift our young people. Yes, I'm a proud Berkeley graduate, but I'm also a proud chairperson of Cedar Bridge Academy. The principal and the teachers work hard. They are dedicated to our students. We must stop placing labels on our young people. No child should ever be defined by the school they attend, the neighborhood they come from, or someone else's perception of their potential. It was one young lady that I gave an award to yesterday, Madam President, and I actually had to pause. I stumbled a bit, and somebody came to me at the end and said, "Lindsay, when you gave your chairman speech, it was beautiful, but when you gave your award, you kind of stumbled." And I said, "I did. I was trying to hold back tears of this young lady who has been in foster care since the day she was born." And I'm gonna be honest, Madam President, I'm a crybaby. I cried at Barclays award ceremony, and I know that young lady. She would have broke down on the stage yesterday with me, because I know her story, and so I had to suck it up. And she was judged before she even got to high school of what her life would be. And I'm proud to say that she's getting off to university in September. When everybody thought that she wouldn't be going to university, I'm proud to say she's been accepted. People are helping her along the way. So, Madam President, to the students of Cedar Bridge Academy, continue to demonstrate what is possible when young people are supported, encouraged, challenged, and believed in. Their accomplishments speak for themselves. To every graduate who has ever been told they were not good enough because they attended a public school, especially Cedar Bridge, I hope your success serves as the strongest response. I think of Dr. Kaiwan Brown. He was in the first class that graduated from Cedar Bridge, and he is a proud alumni. You have proven that excellence is not determined by the name of a school, but determined by determination of the student. You have shattered stereotypes, exceeded expectations, and shown Bermuda what is possible when young people are given the opportunity to thrive. Your success sends a powerful message, not only to those coming behind you, but to the entire community, that excellence exists in every classroom, every school, and every child when we invest in them and believe in them. Our greatest foundation is education. Let us commit to changing the narrative surrounding our public schools. Let us replace stereotypes with support, assumptions with opportunity, and criticism with encouragement. Let us celebrate our young people, not only when they graduate, but every day as they strive to become the very best version of themselves. To the graduates, as you begin the next chapter, whether it leads you to university, technical training, entrepreneurship, the police service, or directly into the workforce, carry yourself with confidence that you have already overcome challenges that have prepared you for whatever lies ahead. Never allow anyone else's opinion define who you are. Dream boldly, work hard, live with integrity, serve your community. Always remember that Bermuda needs your ideas, your talents, your compassion, and your leadership. I know I do, and I'm sure I can speak to Minister Caesar because, we talk about this. But we look forward to welcoming you home and build a stronger and better Bermuda. To the class of 2026, congratulations on your remarkable achievement. We are proud of everything you have accomplished, and we are excited to see that you will achieve what you will achieve in the years ahead. Let today not simply celebrate you, but celebrate everything that you have gone through to get to today. Congratulations again. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons. Would any other senator kids? Senator Misha Fabler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'll start off by thanking my colleague. Of course, before I want to take the time again to highlight that I am a product of the public education system, having attended Francis Patton, Somerset Primary, Sands, and Cedar Bridge Academy. Thank you. And then moving on, I don't really have a slot in congratulations or condolences, but I would like to highlight for the listening public that tonight on July 1st at Harbor Nights, if the weather cooperates, there is the recognition of the efforts of the progressive group highlighting their monumental, pivotal work to end segregation in Bermuda. And so there will be a recognition of the quote unquote ordinary heroes who opened up Bermuda from 7 to 7:30 p.m. at the flagpole. And I encourage all of you to attend. And I had prepared a presentation today off the back of my colleague Senator Bell tabling the report on cooperative businesses, but I think I'm going to defer just given the time. We had quite a bit of delay there, and it's been some great presentations already. And so on that note, I will yield my time. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Misha Fubler. Senator Dunbar Smith, Tariq Dunbar Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Madam President. Again, good afternoon to the listening audience and my Senate colleagues. I'll be brief. I was contemplating whether I was going to speak a motion to adjourn, but then I read something. I just want to say this. As a parent of a young man who raced go-karts, and with the events of what happened this past weekend, I read something that Mr. Rayner, I wouldn't call him Grapes because it's none of my company, wrote online about how his son would want everyone to go on with racing. We do have some incidents that happen in racing that sometimes can cost life, as it did this past Sunday. But Pudgy loved to race. And people that are in the motorsports world, whether it be go-karting with Roman, Supercross that Pudgy used to race, scrambling, as we call it here in Bermuda, as well as boat racing. Tragedies happen, but they're very few and far between. So when the Bermuda Powerboat Association goes back out to their next race, which is supposed to be next week, but they're going to postpone it out of respect. Please, I encourage the public to go out and support. It's exciting, and yes, things do happen. But when I read what Mr. Rayner wrote today, that his son would say, "Get on with the racing." And as a parent of someone, and I think Sue will back me up with this, when the green flag would drop on a go-kart race and Roman would go down the track at 13 years old at 88 miles an hour, my heart would be in my chest. But it's something that he loved. So when I read the comments online about people saying they shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that with powerboat racing, stop. This was what this young man loved. And like his father said, and you can find it in the place and read it, it's in the public domain, as Senator Bell likes to say, right? Read what his father said today about what his son would have liked, and his son unfortunately passed away, but he passed away doing something that he really, 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 really enjoyed. So I encourage Rubicans to stop being so negative. Things happen that are sad, things happen that are tragic, but this man and parents like myself put our children out there because that's what they love to do. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tariq Dunbar Smith. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none, then, senators, I thank you for today, our session, and we now will adjourn until May the 15th.